With the rich history of Philadelphia, I thought it was not only necessary, but imperative to start this video with an inspirational and certainly not taken out of context quote from Thomas Edison, as I attempt to make the perfect Philly cheesesteak from the comfort of my own home. Hello Internet, my name is Cooper. I'm on a personal mission to use my passion for both football and cooking to take us all on a journey of making 32 dishes inspired by the 32 teams of the NFL, and I figure it's only right to have the first episode of this series begin with my personal favorite team, the Philadelphia Eagles. So while I'm getting my ingredients together for an obligatory yet beautiful shot of them all just sitting on my cutting board and counter, let's talk a little bit about Philly and why the fuck a cheesesteak sandwich is so deeply ingrained in the city's history. While argued on its validity, it's often said that the cheesesteak was actually invented in a hot dog stand called Light Lunch back in 1932 by a man named Pat Olivieri. Olivieri. I cannot do this. A name many Philadelphians may recognize and are probably mocking me for, but he sent his brother to go get some steak. They grilled it up and slapped it on a roll with some grilled onions, and, well, that's pretty much it. I don't anticipate this moment in history being remade into a movie raking in Academy Awards. However, these sandwiches became so popular that Pat opened up his own restaurant that's still standing to this day, Pat's King of Steaks. It took another decade until a dude working there named Cocky Joe, I'm not making this up, he had the game-changing idea of throwing cheese on the sandwich, and since then, it's been heavily debated on what the acceptable toppings are for a cheesesteak. My intense research shows that peppers, ketchup, mayo, mushrooms, bacon, and red sauce are all possible topping contenders, and I'm sure I'm missing tons more. I'm also sure that whatever I put on this sandwich, I'm going to get roasted for, so I might as well just take one and embrace it, you know? Since it looks like I'm still working on getting that cool ingredients and utensil shot, I may as well talk some football while we're waiting on me to get my... I have been a diehard Eagles fan ever since I was a kid, and let me tell you a secret. I'm not even from, nor have I ever even lived in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania. But the proof is in the pudding here, because after some intense digging, I found it. My 5th grade yearbook photo of me in a Donovan McNabb jersey, complete with a haircut not to be confused with a ski ramp, and front teeth not to be confused with SpongeBob. Donovan McNabb was without a doubt my favorite player growing up, and he was a huge influence on me becoming a Birds fan. His ability to be an effective passer and runner left me completely in awe of him, and I was hooked ever since then. And while the man is continuously tarnishing his reputation after retiring from the league, I still have to at least thank him for introducing me to the Eagles. So I've been around for the good times and the not so good times, the post-McNabb, Kevin Kolb days, the Miracle in Meadowlands Part 2, Chip Kelly's Dream Team, and the Philly Special, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. What do I think of the Philadelphia Eagles this year? Well, I'm glad you asked. There's a lot on the line this year, in my opinion. It's Wentz's year to show the world that he can lead the team like he did in the better half of 2017 and that it really wasn't a fluke. I think this year Howie Roseman has helped supply him with an arguably bigger arsenal than ever before. And there's more depth at running back, a position that any Birds fan can agree was lacking in last year, to be pretty gentle, with additions of ex-Bear, Jordan Howard, and rookie second-rounder Miles Sanders. Other notable additions in the past offseason are rookie J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and of course, ex-Eagle, Redskin, Buccaneer, Deshaun Jackson help on top of the impressive receiving core of Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar, and also the deadly tight end duo of Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. Also worth noting, the Eagles spent their first-round pick last April on left tackle Andre Dillard to come in after bodyguard Jason Peters' leg inevitably falls off entirely, and this will be a welcome addition. Overall, this offense is as stacked as ever. Despite this, there's still a smell coming from the Eagles.
Do you smell it? That smell. A kind of smelly smell. A smelly smell that smells smelly.
Except I'm not talking about anchovies. I'm talking about their secondary. A hill that I'll die on, and probably not the most unpopular opinion about the Eagles. Their secondary is trash, and it's been trash for a long time, and it'll likely continue to be trash. 30th in the league for pass defense, and while stats aren't everything, a similar ranking to that for the past 7 years, it's something that really can't be excused, or at least overlooked. I think this stench comes from a few reasons. One is that I'd argue it's seemingly a lower priority to the team themselves to fix. It's clear that they don't heavily invest in drafting secondary, with the last time spending a first-round pick in secondary being Lito Shepherd in 2002. It has been over 15 years since the last time the Eagles have picked up a safety or corner in the first round. Though it is worth noting they spent a second-rounder on an unproven Sidney Jones back in 2017. I don't count that as a strong counterpoint since he was expected to, and did, sit out most of his rookie year recovering from a previous injury. He didn't provide immediate relief to the team like a first-rounder often is assumed to do. The Eagles also tend to mend their secondary problem by plugging in free agents who may or may not work. notably Asante Samuel, Nnamdi Asomugha, and Ronald Darby, just to name a few of them. And while I trust the process the Eagles have going for them, I can't help but wince in pain when Jalen Mills and company gets torched week after week. So yeah, I think this is a prove-it year for the Eagles, and while I did just on their secondary, it was injury-ridden to the bone last year and exceptionally bad, and I can accept that's something that just kind of happens in this sport. But with a clean slate, a healthy Wentz, and more offensive weapons than ever before, it's time to nut up or shut up. Ah, finally, doesn't that shot look cool? Except for that doofus in the Blink 182 shirt standing there. But all this talk about anchovies has really made me hungry, and you've patiently listened to me talk about sandwiches and football for a while now, so the least I can do is finally show you how to make that perfect cheesesteak. I mean, that's probably why you came here in the first place anyway. Alright, first things first, squirt a liberal amount of oil into the big skillet over a medium to medium low heat. I'm personally using olive oil on a cast iron. After that, it's time to dice an onion. If you have done it a million times before, you can copy me or just watch Gordon Ramsay's video on it that I shamelessly studied before stepping in front of a camera. I would say make sure that the chunks aren't incredibly small, but it's your sandwich. Ones around the size of your fingernail are what I'd go for. Cut off the butt of it, take off the first layer or two, and make a bunch of slices from close to the root of the onion to the back end. Turn it sideways, smush your hand on top to keep it in place, and awkwardly insert your knife up the anus of the onion. A very scientific way of explaining this. This part's a little trickier if you use what has devolved into a glorified butter knife like me, but if you have a sharp one, you're golden. Once that's done, squish it together and make perpendicular cuts until you reach the root, and congrats, you're halfway done. It's your call if you want to use an entire onion, but half is enough for a single sandwich in my opinion. I'm going to use a full onion and use the other half for a different meal that I'll talk about later. I think a perfect Philly has peppers, so it's time to slice one up. Easiest way to do that is to decapitate the stem, flip it upside down like some sort of green space shuttle, and then cut down the three sides to avoid hitting the oddly looking arrangement of seeds inside. Put the skin side down and use your knuckles as a guide for the knife and slice away. Easy enough. At this point, I usually throw a sacrificial onion chunk into the pan to see if it's hot enough to crackle back at me in anger. When your skillet is sufficiently pissed off, throw all of your veggies in there and give them a light salting. We're looking for a caramelization, which for onions is just a fancy way of saying glossy and brownish. I'd say give it between 6 to 8 minutes with some stirring every once in a while. While that's going on, let's get to work on the star of the show. I salted and peppered my ribeye a little bit before freezing for about 30 to 40 minutes to make sure it is a little bit more firm for cutting. With the sharpest knife you have, start making the thinnest slices you can. If you run into a piece that is just entirely silver skin, toss it to the food graveyard you have going with onion and pepper remains. There isn't much of a science to this part and it'll take some time. Once you've created the most expensive meatball of your life, try to give it a few more cuts on the big slices to cut it down to size just a little bit. You don't want to have a giant bite of steak. You're not mincing or trying to ground it or anything, but use this as an opportunity to look for more giant fatty pieces you probably missed, as well as make it more biteable for later. After that, you're on the home stretch. See how your veggies are doing. I think a browning like this does the trick. Scoot them aside to make room for the steak, heat up some more oil, and plop it in there. The thin slices and chunks are going to cook a lot faster than a regular steak, as you could probably guess. Poke and flip the chunks every now and then to make sure you're not eating a medium rare Philly, and then it's time to get that bread. I contemplated for the longest time if I was going to make my own roll for this episode or not, but I think this is one of the things I'm going to leave to the pros. Do yourself a favor and get a good, chewy, soft Italian roll from a local bakery if possible. Crack it open like a fluffy oyster, but not all the way through, then take out a spoon. We're going to scoop out a little of the top side of the roll to make room for the thick boy awaiting you in the skillet. This makes it to where the sandwich doesn't ooze all the toppings out of the side while you're trying to eat it, and instead stores them in this sort of DIY bread attic that we're creating. You don't need to remove a ton, but enough to make a little headroom is worth the effort. Once that's done, you may have a little downtime while your steak is finishing up. Check on it to make sure your apartment isn't catching on fire, and then you've got a little bit of time to kill. Personally, I kill it by eating my bread remnants I scooped out while pretending my role was the lead singer of All Time Low. Once your meat is looking ready and you're salivating over the smell of your kitchen, scoop out whatever you think isn't going to fit in this sandwich. I only made a single sandwich, so I definitely had some remaining bits that I threw into a Philly cheesesteak and egg breakfast burrito the next day, one of my better ideas in my opinion. Once removed, line up everything to be ready for liftoff, and then throw some cheese on it. A potentially hot take with this, but I think Cheese Whiz is the way to do it. If it isn't, let me know in the comments what you like. Either way, I'm putting Cheese Whiz on this and you can't stop me today. Let it warm up and sink into the rest of the sandwich and you're pretty much ready to go. If you think I bought these cute little sandwich baskets and matching paper liners for a cool aesthetic and thumbnail, you're damn right. You've made it this far. Now is the true test on if you're a cheesesteak wizard or a poser. You owe it to yourself as a sandwich maker to try this. Put your roll down onto the skillet. You may need to cut the ends of the roll. Grab some utensils to get underneath the sandwich and make some kind of weird three-pronged MacGyver invention. Or just barehanded, I don't really care. Lift it up and over and, well, it was better than the first time I tried this. After you've accepted defeat, scoop up whatever else you want to cram on the sandwich and you get ready to chow down. Make sure to turn off the burner in your excitement, because if you're like me, you'll be so ready to eat that you'll just forget about it entirely. Throw it in your cute little basket and liner, or just on a regular plate if you're not extra like me, and dig in. Can I say this is the perfect Philly? I'm sure there are people out there who have been doing it far longer than me and who would put mine to shame, yeah. Do I think this was the best Philly served in suburban Missouri last night? Yeah, I could get behind that. So I've told you about my favorite team and what they mean to me. Let's hear yours. Tell me what your favorite team is and your story behind them. Part of the reason I made this channel is so that I can build a community of fun people to chat football with, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next week.